Hello everybody. In this video today I'm going to show you how to begin the hexagon cardigan. So we're going to be looking at the centre loop, the foundation hexagon, starting your first row and then getting to the point where we're going to decrease on one side to create the tapered sleeve. So first off we're going to take our yarn and we've got a 6mm crochet hook. So I am going to create my slip knot. Okay. I'm going to put my hook through my slip knot, okay, and at this point you want to keep it, you know, sort of loose-ish, not, I'd say relaxed maybe, not tight, because that will really cause you problems, but not too baggy either because it will just be a bit gapey. So just a nice relaxed motion. So I'm going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have our chain 4. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the loop by going into the first loop, taking my yarn over, pulling it through, okay, and then slipping the first loop, I should say, through the second loop. Okay, now here we have a ring. At the moment it's not going to look much, but the thing to bear in mind is you will see a line here and a line here. It is this, oops, I moved there. It's the middle bit that we're going to be working into. So now what we do to start our clusters is I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. We're now going to do 2 treble crochets into the centre of the ring. So yarn over into the middle. Okay, 1. So that's number 1. Yarn over again, back in the middle, over again. Oops, I just slipped then. 1, 1. Okay, so now you will see we have our starting chain of 3 and then 2 treble crochets. Now what we do is we chain 2, and this helps to create the corners, shall we say, of the hexagon. It will all make sense as we go on. I've chained 2, and we're now going to do a treble crochet cluster. So that is 3 treble crochets into the same space. So yarn over. That's 1. Yarn over again into the centre. Yarn over and back in the middle. And that is another cluster. So if you can see there's the first cluster. That becomes a corner, second cluster. So what we're going to do again now is we're going to chain 2 to create another corner. So there's a chain 2. And we're going to repeat that cluster. Let me just move my yarn out of the way. So we're going to do another treble cluster. So that's yarn over in. That's 1. 2, 3. Okay, chain 2 again. Always remember on this foundation hexagon to chain 2 in between each of the clusters. So I'm going in again with another cluster. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to straight away chain 2. So looking at this now, we have 1 cluster, 2 cluster, 3 cluster, 4 cluster. So 2 more to go. So I've got my chain 2, so I'm going to go back in the centre again with another cluster. That's 1. 2. 3, and straight away chain 2 again. Okay, and we're going to do 1 more. 1, 2, and then we've got 3. Okay, so if we look now, we have got, I've just caught it a bit there, I'm just going to even it out. We've got our starting cluster, cluster 2, cluster 3, cluster 4, cluster 5, cluster 6. Now what I do now is I need to join back up to the beginning, so I'm going to chain my 2, 1, 2, and now what you do is you slip stitch into the 3rd chain in the chain 3 at the beginning. So this is this one at the top here. Now when you go through, it's sometimes a bit fiddly, so don't stress too much, just take your time as I'm doing here, making sure you've gone through. And what I sometimes find is that you need to use the actual hook of the hook to kind of find the space. Okay, if it's not working out, just kind of play around with your fingers and just make sure you're getting it through the 2 loops. Okay, it's really important, as you can see me fiddling about here, to get it through the 2. Otherwise, again, you get this bagginess, which is not very pleasant. So yarn over through and then through. So if we look now, it's difficult to see straight off because of the sort of the variegated yarn. But as you can see here, we've got side 1, side 2, side 3, side 4, side 5, side 6. Okay, so that is your foundation hexagon. We're now going to do row 1. Okay, so what we do again is we chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and straight away into this gap here, we're going to put 2 treble crochet clusters. 1, 2. Okay, and that's that. Now what we're going to do, which is slightly different here, is we are now going to chain 1. Okay, I'm going to chain 1, yarn over into the next gap. And the reason we're doing the chain 1 is that helps to create the flat of the sides, but we're still going to, in the next gap, do another treble cluster. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what has happened here is we're going to start creating our sides. So this is our beginning corner. This will be on the flat of the side, and this is the next corner. So because it's a corner, we're going to chain 2. By chaining 2, it creates the space to go round a corner and back in the same hole as per the pattern. And I'm going to do another treble crochet cluster. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if I just pop that down, you can start to see this here is a corner, this is the flat. Okay, so this is going to become a side. Okay, so now because we've done a corner and we're going to work on a side, we just chain 1, and we're now going to do another corner here. Okay, but the chain 1, as I say, is making way for the sides. So into the next hole, and we're now going to create our next corner. 1, 2, 3. It's a corner, so chain 2, 1, 2, and then back in the hole. 1, 2. This is very much a trust the process situation. At the beginning, it doesn't look like much, and you think, hey, hold on a minute, this isn't going the way I think it should. But honestly, trust the process and it will. So I've created another corner, so I'm now going to chain 1, yarn over again, back in the next hole to do another double cluster in a corner. 1, 2, 3, chain 2. Just going to release some more yarn from my ball. Okay, so now I've done my chain 2, so I'm now going to do another cluster in the same space. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. I'm not going to stop here, I'm just going to keep going, and then I'm going to show you what I've done when I get to the end. And as I say, just trust this process. What I'm doing now is what we talk about on page 13 of your hexagon pattern, where it talks about chain 1 spaces and chain 2 spaces, and this is what we're creating at the moment, the chain 1 and chain 2 spaces, which will create the foundation of our hexagon as we go through the rows. And sometimes I get carried away and I have to check if I already done my three crochets, because sometimes I end up with either 2 or 4, which is not the ideal. So don't get carried away like I do. Just double check if you have done your 3. If you're not sure, it's worth just double checking. Because once you get into a rhythm with this, it's quite therapeutic. And that's where the danger comes in, that you just keep crocheting in the same space. And then you wonder why it looks so thick. So another chain 2. 1, 2. Okay, back into the gap. 1, just trying to do a really slow motion version of a treble, just so that you can see the workings of it there. It's a lovely, lovely stitch which builds height really, really quickly. So your project grows very fast. So we're now back to the beginning. So I'm going to do another cluster back in the beginning hole. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to chain 2, and then going back to the beginning of our work, I'm going to go in. That was a lot easier. As I say, keep it loose and it just makes these stitches even easier. So I'm just going to hold there for a moment. Okay, pop my hook to one side. Can you see here? And I'm just going to pick her up. So what we have here, and again referring to page 13, here we have what we call a chain 2 space. So there's 2 chains in that space, and that's a corner. Here we have a chain 1 space. So when we talk about those spaces, you'll now be able to visualize exactly what we mean. Okay, so we're now going to do another row before we begin our decreasing. Okay, so what I'm going to do again is I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, yarn over, back in the same space, 1, 2. The beauty with crochet is if you make a mistake, you can just literally undo 1 or 2 stitches. You don't have to go back to the beginning of a row. That's the beauty of it. Now, what we do now is whereas before we've been doing sort of like chain 1s and chain 2 sort of every other, we need to sort of actually start to just do single clusters rather than just double clusters in every space. So I've done that. I'm now going to do a chain 1, yarn over into this chain 1 space, and here we're going to just do 1 treble cluster. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to chain 1. Okay, so I'm just going to stop there. Let me move that a little bit out of the way. So all of a sudden you're starting to get to the flat, and there's just 1 cluster there, so that you can see how your hexagon is going to keep forming and how the sides are going to keep growing, and the shape is going to take effect even faster. Okay, so we've done a chain 1 now a yarn over, and we're back into a corner. So we're still going to now create another corner, but we're elongating the sides. So that's 1, 2, 3, 3. I'm going to chain 2 because it's a corner. Back over, back in the same space. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to chain 1. Okay, so corner. I'm now going to go chaining 1 chain and then into the chain 1 space, and we're going to just do 1 cluster. So that's 1, 2, 3, chain 1, jump to a corner, yarn over. And you'll always know which of the corner spaces because it is an angle. So it's never any concern that you won't be able to find the corner. But at the beginning, just sort of work slowly so that you get used to sort of where you're doing your chain 1s and your chain 2s. And then you'll get into that little rhythm. It's a corner, so I'm going to chain 2. And it's just about finding how it feels comfortable for you, how to hold your yarn, how you hold your hook, sort of getting that muscle memory so that your wrist is relaxed, but able to manipulate the hook the way you want it to go, and rather than it be a struggle, so that it just glides through on each stitch. So I'm now elongating the sides. You'll find at this point it really does start to grow, and that your ball of wool, you're unwinding it quite frequently. Again, I'm on a side, nearly at the end. This is why we say that the treble crochet is such a utility stitch. It really can be used for so many things. So if you have some of our other patterns, for example the poncho, you'll notice that we used the same stitch just in the round, the treble crochet clusters. And then if you've done our fantasy cocoon, we did a half treble, which again is a beautiful stitch. And then our It's Got Pocket shawl was single treble crochets, but worked in such a way that it created a wave pattern. And again, it just shows you how one simple stitch can be used in so many ways to create so many designs. It's really, with our patterns, we're really trying to get you to become an expert in certain stitches, which we really see as the utility stitches, the stitches that can help you with the majority of crochet projects you'll probably want to do. And once you've mastered those, I think you can then go on to do some really fancy things. And we've got some great ideas of new things coming out for the second half of the year. And I can't wait to share them with you. But I can't tell you any more just yet. I'm just being a tease, I know. So if I'm just getting near to the, oops, my mouse has just come in. Bear with me, I'm just going to unwind my yarn again. Some people at this point like to have like a yarn bowl. Some people have like a winder thing for your yarn to sit on. We all have different things that work for us. It's just finding, what works for you, to just make the process as smooth as possible for you. And what I always like to do, if I'm sort of getting to the point where I'm going to put it down, I always like to get to the end of one row if I can, because that way it's easier to then just pick up, because it's really obvious where you were. Because that's the worst bit, isn't it? If you put it down and come back to it a day or two later, it's like thinking, where had you got to? Okay, 1, 2. And remember, each row will, as you go through the project, will take longer, because each row becomes longer because you're making the project bigger and bigger and bigger. So you will get to the point where, you know, a row potentially could have like close to 80, 90 clusters in it. So as you go through, it will take longer and longer to complete a row. Here we go, we're back to the beginning. I always get excited at this point because you get to see the fruits of your labour with another completed row, and that your hexagon has grown. Right, I've done my chain 2 and I'm now going to join it back up to the beginning. Oh, now, little mistake there. I actually yarn overed early, so I'm going to undo that, slap myself on the wrist and try again. So no yarn over for the slip stitch, through the loop, pull the yarn through, and then pull the loop through. Okay, so I'm just going to stop there. So can you see how this has grown? So we now have the corners here. So this is your corner with the chain 2 space. This is your elongated side now, with this is the single cluster with chain 1 space either side. And then we've got another corner with a chain 2. So how fabulous is that looking? I'm really, really pleased with that so far. Now, this is the 4th row, so row 1, row 2, row 3. So on the 4th row, this is where we actually start our decrease. Now, I know that decreasing can be daunting, but we've come up with a really easy way, I feel, that we can decrease. So it still looks like it's in pattern, but it isn't going to massively cause you any headaches, shall I say. So what I would suggest you do, and I've not got one to hand, but at this point I would suggest popping through here one of your little stitch markers or something like that, just to remind you which side you're decreasing on. So when you look at the pattern, it talks about, for the left side, you decrease on the first row, first side after the start, and for the other side you decrease in the last row before the beginning of a new row. So I hope that all makes sense, but obviously do send me a message if that isn't making sense. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to start row 4, which is our decreasing row. As always, I'm going to start with a chain 3, and then I'm going to do the first cluster in the first corner. Get that done and out of the way. I'm going to undo that because something's gone horribly wrong there. It's probably me not concentrating. So yarn over, back in. There we go. There we go. As I say, it's that easy to undo it and start again. You haven't got to worry, like with knitting, about dropping any stitches, because it doesn't tend to happen. Okay, so this is where we start our decreasing, and we're going to decrease over these 2 chain 1 spaces here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start as normal, yarn over into the chain 1 space, and we're going to complete 1 treble, just 1 treble, not a cluster, just 1 treble. Okay, so we have our 1 treble. So now we're going to do the joining stitch. So again, yarn over, back into the same space, grab your yarn, pull it through, okay, and pull it through the 2 loops. But whereas before you normally then yarn over and pull it through the final 2, we're going to yarn over again. I always put my thumb here to hold it, but we're now going to jump to the next chain 1 space. So in here we're then going to grab that yarn again. So we have now got 4 loops on our hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull through the first 2, okay, and then yarn over and pull through 3. Okay, so I'm just going to pause there. At the moment it looks a bit weird, but trust the process. Yarn over again, and we're going to complete 1 more treble. Okay, that's yarn over, 1, 2. I'm just going to pause there. So what we now have, and it does look a bit strange at the moment, we now have 2 trebles on each side, but the middle 2 are joined. Okay, and this actually decreases those stitches. So on the next row, whereas you'd expect to have 2 singles across that side, you're only going to have 1. All right, and that's what it's going to taper. So now from here, I'm just going to chain 1, okay, and then I'm going to go into the corner and start doing my trebles. Let me just undo some more yarn. Okay, so that's 1, 2, just do my corner and then back in. 1, 2. One more. See, it's easy to lose count. So don't worry if you do lose count, it's quite normal. Now we're doing the single cluster. 1, 2. Chain 1. And we're now going to do another single cluster. So each row your size will grow, so from having 1 single cluster on the side to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, etc. Except obviously on the decrease side it will always be 1 less for you. Chain 1. Start that one again, Helen. 1, 2, 3. I might just put my wall on the floor actually, see if that's easier on this desk. 1, 2. So I hope this is helping. Obviously, when I pop this video on the Facebook page, there's going to be space underneath for you all to add comments. If anything doesn't make sense, then obviously please just shout. Sorry for the wobble there. So I'm just going to pause there for a moment and look how much that hexagon has grown. Look at that. That is just amazing. You can see here that obviously this side is slightly shorter, but I think you can really see the fruits of your labour now. So I'm just going to carry on to the end of this row. So talk amongst yourselves while I fast forward. And just something to point out here, if ever you think, oh, have I done that single crochet, you can always tell if you have, because here you can see the last 2 stitches, so that would show you that you haven't done your single crochet. But if you pop that on there, you can see then that the 2 stitches are locked together. So it's always, again, if you think, oh, have I done it? No, not sure. Always double check that. If you can see 2 stitches, then you haven't. If you can't see the 2, then you have. It's a great video if you find watching somebody else crochet very therapeutic. But I hope that you're also finding this video really helpful. And like I say, if there's any other parts of it that I've not covered in this video that you want to see, then please drop a comment and I can make another video to help you with the next steps, really. Because it's all about learning together. I've only been crocheting for just over a year now, and it was always something I wanted to learn. I'd been knitting since I was very young, and I just couldn't grasp crochet. I'm actually left-handed, but I ended up learning to crochet right-handed because I actually couldn't pick it up left-handed. It just seemed impossible for me to do it. I suppose because I knit right-handed, it's all about sort of, you have that that way of doing things, and I tried to do it so many times, but I guess there is an element of muscle memory from knitting that sort of, you know, transfers over to crochet. So I guess that's why it just wasn't easy for me to follow the videos. So yeah, so if you're struggling to crochet, if you're a left-hander like me, if you're struggling to pick it up left-handed, try it right-handed, because you just never know. And equally, I guess there will be right-handed folk who just need to learn how to crochet left-handed. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever works for you, and we all find our way of doing it. I always say it's the end result that matters, not how you got there. We're nearly at the end, I think. And at the end of this row, I'm going to show you how you can start to visualise how your hexagon is going to look. So here we are, we're getting back to the beginning of the row, because I've got that single cluster there waiting for this other part to join it. I've got my 3, 1, 2. Now, don't want to do that bit because that's where I went wrong last time. I'm going to go through that stitch. Okay, so there we have it. I'm going to just flatten that out, and you're never going to be able to flatten it fully, because you're just not, because it is kind of a 3-dimensional shape. Oh, sorry, let me put that more in the center. It is a dimensional shape now, but what you can see here, I'm going to just pull that out and just open it up. So here we've got the hexagon, as you can see, the 6 sides, but here, this is where we decreased. So looking on this side, when we get to here, we'll do our corner, and then we'll do 1, 2, 3 clusters, then another corner. on this side, we'll do the corner, 1 cluster, 2 cluster and a corner. So that's how the decreasing works. That's how it's going to taper up. So it's always going to, when you fold it flat, hold it flat like that, it's going to look a little bit odd because you've got that pointing in. But a few people said, well, how do you fold it to make it into the corner? This doesn't look like that L shape. Well, what you do, if you turn it round, okay, fold it along the line. So you fold it where the decrease is and fold the two sides together. There you go. Let me move those tail ends out. How clever is that? So this is your sleeve and this is your body. So this would be looking at, because this is the left side. So this would be the edge of the sleeve. This would be the top edge sleeve seam. And down here would actually be the front of your cardigan. And I just find it fascinating how you can make that you can just make this hexagon and then all of a sudden fold it up and it is half of a cardigan. How cool is that? Now, what I just want to do here is I just want to show you how you would join this using the single crochet method. Okay, now this is a method that, again, something I taught myself because I wasn't finding it that easy to sew it up. Now, you'll obviously know that I haven't finished this. I mean, this could be for a little baby doll or something. But I'm just going to give you an idea of how to do the single crochet to stitch it up. So what I've got here, I'm going to utilise the fact that I've got this loop here. Obviously, in most cases, you would join your yarn. Okay, so what I'm literally going to do, okay, is I'm going to go through here and through here. Okay, so this would be the inside. Imagine this is the inside. So pretend that I've got my right sides facing each other. Okay, so I've gone through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through. Okay, then I go to the next step and I take the 2 inner loops, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, pull it through. Okay, try that again. No yarn over because it's a single crochet. In the back loop, in the front loop, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, pull it through. You're not going to see the seam just yet, so let me just go through again. Through the back loop, through the front loop, pull the yarn through and yarn through. Okay, I will obviously be undoing this because I'm not quite at the point of needing to seam, but I know that some people have asked how we do this, so this is why I'm showing you here. Okay, so just to reiterate, through the back loop, through the front loop, pull the yarn through, close it off. Through the front loop, through the back loop, pull the yarn through, close it off. Now I'm just going to pull that up like that so I don't disconnect. But here we go. If you look here, can you see that really nice, it's almost like a chain stitch, which is where I've seamed it. So if I then turn it inside out, here we go. Look at that. How neat does that seam look? I think it looks really quite clean and tidy, and it's balanced. It's not gapey. So if you can imagine now, this was your hexagon. Look at that lovely top edge you'd have to the seam, because remember the arm seam here goes from your shoulder down to your wrist, or however far down you're going with it. So it's because it's going to be on the top of the arm and therefore more noticeable, you want it to be as neat as possible. And I often find that with stitching, sometimes your tension can be a little bit off, or it can look a little bit gappy, but I love this method. There is obviously the option, if you prefer, you could actually stitch it in such a way that you actually have this kind of raw edge seam going along. But I think it's a really nice, clean and tidy way of how to join a couple of sides. This would work for joining granny squares together, for adding a piece of trim onto something, if you've crocheted 2 bits separately, obviously for stitching up garments like the hexagon. And again, if it goes wrong, you can literally, look at that. There we go. Just got a few little loopy bits, but you've not had to kind of get a needle and yarn out. You can just start again, and that's the beauty of that method. So I really hope that that's helped with quite a lot of questions that people might have had. But as I say, if you've got any more questions, just pop comments below underneath the video, and I will be back with more. See you later. Bye bye.